My stepmom is horrible. But what I didn't know was my stepmom was my college professor. Yeah, it sounds as crazy as it really is, but that's not all. She's racist. She's trying to get me expelled from school and also making up all these lies and just making fun of me in front of the class. Well, you know what my father has to say about this?
Hey guys, my name's Mindy. I'm 18 years old, and I'm living with my father and his new wife, my stepmom, basically. Her name is Jean, and I'm here because my life is in shambles because of her. I've worked so hard to get into one of the best universities in the country, Duke, and she's also made things so bad that I might get expelled. Before I explain everything, it's relevant to the story to tell you that I'm Asian. My father, Haruto, immigrated to the U.S. from Japan and built a very luxurious and content life for us, from the scratch. He's been really working hard. This is also the reason why he's attracting a lot of women. He's tall, good-looking, rich. This is the reason why he did not remarry years after my mother died 10 years ago. He was unsure about every woman's intentions until he met Jean. She's a successful public policy professor who was doing really well for herself when she met my father. They got along well, really well, and my dad knew that she had no reason to have malice in her heart. So they got married 6 years back, and all was well for a few months, and even I was really happy for them. But then I started to notice how Jean had started making some borderline offensive comments about my appearance and how I was privileged to be living in America, which was weird because I was young at the time and did not know what to make of it. But then it started getting more and more obvious with each passing day. At the first anniversary party, her entire speech was about the exoticness of our family and how it had taught her that America was a land that was wide open to people of good faith no matter where they came from. It may not sound wrong at first, but it meant that she only viewed us as outsiders who were so privileged to be living in America and nothing more. Why was our race such a big deal to her? So I decided to politely ask her in case I had interpreted her speech wrong, but turns out I had not. She said that she could never see us as Americans because we did not belong here, and no matter how many years we had spent here, we would have taken away resources from, quote, her people who work really hard. It was, I don't know, if this was not enough to trigger me, she proceeds to say, "You don't even look like us. How can you claim you're American?" To me, this was ridiculous on so many levels, and it made me so angry I could not even explain it. She was such a big racist with so many racial hatreds in her. Even though she was married to my father. I mean, why did she even marry him if this was the kind of person she was? I confronted her, but she just screamed at me and asked me to get out of her room. Since I was only 13, I felt very scared and underconfident. This continued on for years. Her racial comments only got worse and more shameless over the decade, and I thought of telling my dad many times but never did because he was in love with her, and it had taken him so long to find someone after Mom, and I didn't want to be the one to ruin that for him again. And she was never a racist in front of him, but I don't know what I had done to her to get such a treatment. So years passed by like this, and I graduated high school, and I'd worked really hard to get into Duke for years, and it all paid off when I got in. I was happy and excited, I can't even explain. I felt like my life was falling back into pieces after so much hard work. Also, since now, I did not have to live with Jean anymore and suffer all the racist crap that she's been putting me through. It was the best step forward in every single sense of the word. So, on the first day of college, I had moved into the dorm a few days back, and was just getting along really well with everyone there. My roommate and I had a lot in common. It was the most brilliant start to college life anybody could have asked for. After a few days, I went for my first ever class, and what I saw there, it made my chest drop to the floor. My professor was Jean. Yes, you read that right. Jean was literally my professor at Duke. I was so confused because she was a public policy officer, and the class was Basics of Environmental Advocacy. I was so shocked, and all of the massive excitement I had for college came crashing down. She had not noticed me yet, and I was mortified thinking of all the massive damage that she could do to my life, being my professor. When the class ended, I had a full-blown panic attack. I was not able to breathe, and Jean saw me in the hallway and gave me water. She said she knew that I was in her class since the day I told them that I got into Duke. She wanted to surprise me. I had to act as if I was excited about her being my professor, so she would not get angry or something so triggering. I just asked her to not tell anyone that she was my stepmom, so that people don't think that she was biased towards me. She agreed at that moment, but I think something I had said offended her. I don't even know, it's like she looks at me and looks for reasons to get offended, ugh. So, I know this because from the next day onward, she starts being so mean and biased towards me. It was humiliating even thinking about it again, it makes me cringe. Whenever she asked any questions and I raised my hand, she would proceed to say, "Yes, Mindy, you can go to the restroom," and everybody laughed. It was so embarrassing and humiliating, I felt bullied by her. When I said I wanted to answer, she always said, "Oh wow, you people can be surprising, like seriously, you people?" In such a blasphemic tone. I tried reporting her to the HOD too, but since everything she said or did wasn't really racist on the face of it, they couldn't do a thing about it. They just suggested that I change classes, but that would mean that Jean would win. She had been a professor for many years, and she knew really well how to offend me and still keep herself out of trouble. She was making my college life hell, and I didn't deserve it. I was crying myself to sleep every night because I was also anxious the entire time. I could not even tell anyone because I could not let anyone know this racist woman was my relative. That's when I decided to call my father and tell him everything, but he didn't believe me. I tried so hard to convince him, telling him everything that she's done over the last few years, but he just said that I was finding it tough to adjust to college life, and was taking it out on her since she is my professor. He did not even listen to me. Instead, he told her what I had said, and her rebuttal to was, "Well, why would I have married you if I was racist, honey?" My dad agreed with her and just brushed my entire concern aside, and I don't know what kind of spell she has on him. So, for the next few weeks, I just decided to be very low-key in her class and not say anything, because she could bully me in class all she wanted, but she could not affect my grades, which is what mattered the most. Things were slightly better because I had learned to deal with this and focus on the good things at Duke, other than her class. I also found out that since Jean had a triple major in college, and she had worked as an environmental advocate for many years, she could teach both public policy and environmental advocacy. But after just a few short weeks of somewhat peace, something terrible happened to me. People in the hallway started giving me the side eye. I could literally tell it by their behavior that they were all talking about me. It was really unsettling, and I felt really conscious and scared. I had no idea what was happening. And guess what I found out? I found out from a classmate about a rumor that's been buzzing about me. The rumor was that I was dating a biology professor named Andrew Hahn. My anxiety and fear had turned into a brain-numbing disbelief at this point. I forgot where I even was, and I'm not exaggerating in the least. This was not some light and funny rumor that caused a few laughs around the campus. This was really serious, and if by mistake it reached the professor, I could get expelled. I didn't even know who this professor was, and someone had started a rumor that I was dating him. Forget the authorities, what would happen if this reached my father? I was so angry and scared at the same time, I rushed to the washroom and bawled my eyes out. I had no idea what to do, and what had I ever done to anyone for them to start such a rumor? I had so many expectations for my college life, and I had worked so hard to get there. But it was turning into a nightmare day by day. If I get expelled, my entire career will go down the drain and get derailed. I got out of the washroom and bumped into Jean. Ugh, perfect timing. She stopped me and said that since I was worried about this, she would do a favor for me. She made sure to do the opposite. She just said that a very vague sentence that left some dramatic TV show exit. I was too oversaturated to pay her any attention. But later that day, it struck me. Jean had started that rumor. I know it. Jean had started a rumor that could get me expelled. I was so naive to think that she could not make my life further hell, and guess what? She had chosen the only professor at Duke who was Asian. That conniving, racist idiot. This happened a few days ago, and I thought that the rumor would die down, but it's only getting worse, and my anxiety is getting more serious. I'm supposed to be focused on my college life and studies. Instead, this is what I'm dealing with. What have I done to deserve this? I keep trying to tell everyone this is just a rumor. It's fake, but nobody is really taking me serious. I have no idea how to keep going like this. I keep waiting for it to die down, but I'm only growing more and more worried that it could reach the dean any time, and I will get expelled. I have nobody to talk about this with, since I would also have to tell them that she's my stepmom, and I absolutely don't know anything what wants to find out about that. I'm just so done with all this that I need it to end. Guys, please help me out. I mean, what should I do? Please, I'm really begging you to help me. I don't know. There's no options really left here for me. I've never even met this professor. Update number 1. Hey guys, it's me. I am back. So, everything has gone downhill for the worst possible way. This is why I have not been able to write an update for the last 2 weeks. And I can't believe this is such a hard time. I have had so much support from you guys. See, this thread is the only good thing in my life right now, which is why it was really disheartening to see certain comments I should say, about how I had done something to Jean for her to act this way towards me. I mean, if you really think like that, then you're part of the problem. You think racism is the fault of the victim. I don't even need to explain what a backwards way of thinking that is. I mean, I didn't do crap to deserve this treatment, and neither have the millions of people facing racism in the country. But anyways, I have been at my absolute rock bottom for the last 2 weeks. Everything in my life has gone wrong. What happened after the last update is exactly what I was worried about. The rumor reached the professor, as I'm sure Jean would have made sure of that. A few days after the last update, I get a call from the dean's office. Yep, I have never gotten into trouble at school once in my life, which is why even the thought of going to the dean's office was so unnerving. I broke down crying on the floor because my worst fear had come true, and I was not prepared for it. I was really scared about the allegations I would have to face and all the humiliation and embarrassment I would have to suffer from. I was also scared that if I told the dean that it was my racist stepmother who had started the rumor, what if they think I only got it because of her reference and that I don't actually deserve to be here? I know that sounds really weird, but there was so much fear and anxiety running through my brain about a million ways it could go wrong. The next day, I went to the dean's office and I saw that the professor and I had been rumored to be with, who was also there. I had only seen him in pictures, and this was the first time I was seeing him in real life. I sat down and they straight up started asking me questions. Even though I was scared to death, I was very firm with my answers because I've done nothing wrong. Even the professor said that it was a silly rumor and he had no idea who I even was. I was there for a total of about 15 minutes and was facing so many difficult questions to answer. It was humiliating, and this was the last thing I had envisioned when I had thought about my college life. After a very intense and uncomfortable 15 minutes, they told me their decision. I've been expelled. My ears literally blanked out and echoed when I heard them say that, and my worst fear had become real and all my future prospects have gone bleak. They didn't believe either of us because Jean had been with the university for 12 years and her credibility was much more than mine or the professor, who had only joined a month ago. I guess that's why she chose him, because he had a blank canvas. They decided to not fire him for an array of reasons. A major one being that, like I mentioned, he had just joined a month back and the termination protocols were too complex for them to go through with it. But the real reason was that he was a man, and whenever such a situation arises, it's always the girl who has to suffer. I cried, I begged, I requested, and did everything possible to stop this, but that only seemed to make it worse. I could not even feel mad at Jean, because all I felt at the moment was fear. So much fear and panic that I rushed to my room and cried my eyes out under my blanket all day. I felt like my life had ended that day, and it still feels that way. See, I'd stayed up late studying concepts that felt impossible to understand. Volunteered and taking these swimming classes all to get into Duke. And I did, but now I don't have that anymore. I don't know what I have even done to deserve this, but I guess Jean must be happy now after ruining my future. So, I stayed in bed for about 2 days straight, after which I had to leave for home and face my father. Guys, he was so absolutely disappointed in me. So much money had been invested into my education, but he did not care about that. He cared that I had done something so shameful and kiddish after he had spent years giving me a good life. He was ashamed of me. He did not even talk to me and just gave me the silent treatment. I came home a week ago and has barely said even more than 10 words to me. My relationship is forever ruined with him, and it's all because of Jean. But, writing this update has made me so angry. Before this, I was just depressed and helpless, but the more I told you my story, the angrier I got. I cannot let this witch ruin my life. I must do something. Something to affect her life just as much as she's affected mine. Do you guys have anything in mind? The more unhinged your suggestions, the better. Update number 2. Oh my gosh, has it really been a month? This last month had been such a rush, and it feels like I have lived a whole year. It started on such a low note, and I can't believe what's even happening. It's almost dizzying. I told you all that I was going to come up with a plan to get back at Jean, and that's what I did. So, after I had moved back home, Jean acted very nonchalantly, as if nothing had happened to my father, and continued to ignore me. At first, I really had to get out of my depressive slump to get anything done, so I started going out with my neighborhood friends a lot to take, me weeks to feel like my old self again. One of these days, I had just come back home and my email was blowing up with emails about the mid-semester exams. I guess I was still a part of the loop chain, and I ignored it at first because I was still at a very sore spot, but then I realized something. Jean was the one who set the question paper for environmental advocacy, and she has an office downstairs in our house. And that's where I knew exactly what I had to do to get back at her. I knew it was a little risky, but I didn't care. Since both Father and Jean are at work the entire day, one of those days I snuck into Jean's office. It was locked, but I used the backyard window to sneak inside. I was looking for the question paper that she had set for the midterm exam, which was 2 weeks later. I opened her system, but she guessed it. I don't know her password. I tried to guess it, but stopped after the second try because she would have gotten notified if I failed again. That's when I remembered she had once shared her Disney Hotstar password with my father when there were some technical issues with his own, and he had to watch the Super Bowl. She had shared it with our family group, and her generation uses the same password everywhere. I put the password in. Bingo. I searched for 5 minutes and found the question paper, so I opened up Instagram and posted it there from her account. Yes, this was my plan, and I executed it. The midterm paper on a Duke University was online for everyone to see. I don't know if you guys understand the kind of scandal this is going to cause. It could take a huge hit on the university's reputation, and they could go to any length to punish the person responsible for it, and it was posted from Jean's account. I was feeling a whole rush of feelings. Fear, excitement, adrenaline. I went straight to my room and waited for the storm to brew. It took less than an hour for an unofficial WhatsApp group to blow up. Everyone was freaking out about the leaked paper. I knew then that the news, it must have reached her surely. She came home very late that night, crying and screaming really bad. I heard her telling my father that she had been fired. All I kept thinking was that it worked. So quickly, Duke does not take these things lightly at all, and I had made it super easy to track who had leaked it. I heard her telling my father as he tried to console her that she went through a lot of scrutiny and humiliation today, and that she had no idea how it even happened because she didn't post it. This all happened 2 days ago, and Jean has no idea still that it was me. Because she's constantly been at the university as there are a lot of proceedings going on against her. I don't know what'll happen now, but I have to start applying to other universities ASAP because my track record so far has been really bad. I need to work even harder now. I have been thinking of just talking to a career counselor, but for that I need my father to talk to me first. I don't even know how to even approach him because I think he expects me to apologize to him. But I haven't done anything wrong. It was all Jean's fault. What do you think I should do? Should I apologize anyways, so we can at least talk about what's next? Do you think he'll even have any faith in me anymore? Guys, I'll be back for another update. Update number 3. This is the final update of the story. Hey guys, so, it's been a month since my last update, and I left you all hanging on a pretty sizzling note, I know, lol. But I've been pretty busy with a lot of life changes. Some really big changes have happened in this last month. You must remember that Jean got fired and I got my revenge against her, but I still had to keep looking for ways to move forward with my own life. So I got pretty busy and immersed myself in university research. My dad was still not talking to me, but soon my guilt had turned into anger towards him, because he just completely refused to believe me when I told him about everything that Jean had been doing, and abandoned me. He completely dismissed me, and if only he had listened to me, none of this would have happened. But then, after just a few days, I heard Jean come home very early, like in the afternoon type early. I was in the kitchen and she barged in and pushed me towards the slab and started screaming at me, saying that she knew I was the one who had leaked the paper. She had found out and was screaming extremely abusive, aggressive, racial slurs. They were so offensive I cannot even mention them here. She didn't even let me speak and was just going off without a pause. I don't know how she found out, but I was glad that she did because I wanted her to regret ever treating me so bad. Well, her screaming and slurring continued for several minutes, and she did not realize that my father did not go to work that day. She was so loud he heard everything from his room, and he came out with a look of shock on his face, mostly hurt. He had never seen the racist side of her I always told him about. The moment she saw him, she went silent, very abruptly, and realized the mistake that she made. She tried explaining and apologizing to my father, but Dad was shocked, to the point that he had nothing to say. That's how he used to get whatever he felt angry off his chest. Well, Jean broke down crying, but my father just said one thing: "This marriage is over." And that's it. That's it. He took me to his room and apologized to me for not listening to me. He felt ashamed and guilty that he had brought such a woman into our house and had failed to see the kind of person that she truly was. That's when I told him that Jean had started the rumor that got me expelled, and he felt guilty further and said that no matter what happened, he was going to get me into a good college again. I can't even tell you how relieved I felt after he said those words. Such huge pressure had been lifted off these shoulders. So, the next few days were spent listening to a lot of apologies from Jean, but my father was done with her. She left the house a week later. Now, this next part that I'm about to tell you is the most surprising thing that's happened to me in the last month. I get an email from Dean of Duke asking me to come to the campus to see him, and I was a little shocked to see the email, but I thought it was probably due to some formalities. So I went there the next week, and when I entered the dean's office, the professor I was rumored to be with was there. The dean started talking and said that since Jean leaked the paper, they did further background checkings on her and found out that she was extremely racist to many of the students on the campus as well. And they found out that I was her stepdaughter, which made it really clear to them how she must be treating me. That's when the other professor came up to them to tell them that he and I did not even know each other and we were not even on the same campus. It took him months to raise, since he did not even know what course I was in, and the only link between the two of us was Jean. Given her track record, it took him less than a minute to figure out that she started it. The entire rumor. They gave me a formal apology and asked me to rejoin ASAP, and since I was a good student and should not miss out more than the syllabus. To sum it up, I could not be happier, guys. I got my revenge against Jean, and she's no longer living with us, and Duke took me back, baby.